Tonight, I've got a little tale for you. A rather poignant, if not entirely sight-seeing one. About a man named Lafayette. He was a creature of habit, you see. So familiar with his farm, even after the lights went out for him. But sometimes, even the most familiar paths lead to the unexpected. Pay close attention, boils and ghouls. Because sometimes the grave truth takes a while to truly sink in. We call this one the grave truth.
In a rural area of Virginia, in a place known as Olinger, back in the 1950s, this is a true story. The dust of countless summers had settled deep into Lafayette's bones, and the scent of hay and turned earth was as familiar as his own breath. For half a century, he'd walked this land, a lifetime that had etched every rut, every rise, every stubborn rock of his farm into the map of his memory. Even when his eyes filled with cataracts and the world had retreated into shadow, leaving him with only the echoes of light and then nothing but pure darkness. His feet knew the path to the milking barn, the curve of the Powell River that ran alongside their northern property line, the exact distance to the old oak by the gardens that fed their family. His wife Myrtle rarely worried. He moved through his routines with the quiet confidence of a man who saw more with his heart than most saw with their eyes. One evening, as the sun began its slow descent, painting the western sky in hues of burnt orange and bruised purple, Myrtle set the supper table. The familiar clatter of cutlery seemed to amplify the silence from outside. Lafayette wasn't in yet. She glanced towards the window, her gaze sweeping across the fields, past the weathered barn, to the distant ragged line of the barbed wire fence that marked their boundary with their neighbors. There, a solitary figure stood. It was Lafayette. He was simply standing, still as a scarecrow, his profile etched against the fading light. Myrtle paused, a spoon halfway to the sugar bowl, but then she shrugged. Perhaps he was just taking in the cool air, listening to the evening chorus of crickets and frogs. She turned back to her work, the familiar rhythm of domesticity, a comforting hum. Minutes stretched into a quarter hour, then more. Just as a faint knot of concern began to tighten in her chest, the back door creaked open. A gust of cool air, carrying the scent of damp earth and wood smoke, preceded Lafayette. His face was alight, a wide, genuine smile splitting his weathered features. He shuffled further into the kitchen, his hand reaching for her arm with an almost giddy excitement. "Myrtle, you won't believe who I just saw." His voice was unusually bright, a youthful exuberance she hadn't seen in years. Old Bill. He was just down by the fence line. We had the grandest chat, laughed about the fish not biting, caught up on everything, said his boy's doing well, finally got that new mule in the fields. Good to see him, haven't seen him in ages, good to talk. He paused, a chuckle bubbling up from deep within him. Myrtle's hand, which had been resting on his arm, slowly tightened, then went cold. Her eyes, wide and suddenly hollow, stared past him, out the window, at the empty, silent fence line. The vibrant purples of the sky had bled into a mournful gray. "Lafayette," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. Bill's been gone for 3 months now. He passed away back in spring." The smile on Lafayette's face didn't falter immediately. Instead, a puzzled frown deepened the lines around his eyes. "Gone? What do you mean gone? I just talked to him. He sounded just like himself, clear as a bell. You must be mistaken, Myrtle." Myrtle's heart ached. She knew the cruel tricks memory and wishful thinking could play, especially when sight was no longer a guide. "No, Lafayette, I'm not mistaken." He shook his head, a stubborn set to his jaw. No, that can't be right. Bill was just there." Myrtle took his hand. "Come on, Lafayette. There's only one way you'll believe me." She led him gently from the house, the night air now cool and damp against their faces. They walked slowly, the familiar creak of the old farm gate echoing in the stillness, down the short country lane to the small, quiet cemetery. The moonlight, though dim, cast long, distorted shadows. Myrtle guided his hand, her fingers tracing the cold, rough edges of the stone. His trembling fingers reached out, hesitant at first, then more confident. They ran over the smooth, cold granite, tracing the indented letters, forming the familiar name, then the dates. His touch lingered on the last one, the year of Bill's passing, undeniably, even to his blind eyes. A shiver ran through his body, and the warmth drained from his expression, replaced by a confusion that quickly deepened into profound sorrow. The silence of the graveyard pressed in, broken only by the rustling of leaves in the ancient trees, whispering truths Lafayette could no longer deny. He had spoken to a dead man.
And there you have it. Lafayette finally grasped the gravitas of the situation. It just goes to show you can't always trust a dead-end conversation, even if it feels lively. Some folks just need a little hands-on experience to confirm the final arrangements. He certainly won't be having any more graveyard shifts with Bill, that's for sure. Now, if you'll excuse me, I hear another spirited discussion brewing by the old crypt. Do stop by again, won't you? It's always a dying pleasure to have company.